Welcome to Zambia Today, where we keep you informed on various government policies and programs. I'm your host, Faith Katai. In an era of globalization and outsourcing, we often forget the power of homegrown innovation and production. But the truth is, local manufacturing is the engine that drives growth, creates jobs, and builds resilient economies. Join me as I interact with the Zambia Association of Manufacturers President, Mr. Ashu Saga, who is going to talk about the benefits of local manufacturing in Zambia. Sir, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
Morning. I would like you to describe the manufacturing sector of Zambia. How would you describe the manufacturing sector of Zambia?
I mean, look, the manufacturing sector in Zambia right now, let me give a few figures in terms of background. We contribute 8.3% of the GDP at the moment. We employ about 10% of the workforce. And we do contribute a significant amount in tax to the revenue of the government. But we have a lot of subsectors in the economy that fall under the manufacturing sector. For example, like the cement, pharmaceutical, agri-processing, metal fabrication. Right now we have specifically even like copper wire production. We have other subsectors, the alcohol and beverages sector. So there's a wide range of subsectors that make up the manufacturing sector, and that also stretches between very large companies and SMEs and MSMEs. It's a very diverse sector, and as you've said, it's one of the sectors that, if we pay correct attention to it, will be the driver of job creation in the country, and that's where we need to really be concentrating.
Okay, so sir, what are some of the key advantages that Zambia has in its local manufacturing?
Look, I mean, the biggest advantage we have is resources, and this is something that we need to be very, very mindful and deliberate about around developing value chains around our resources. And when I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about mineral wealth, one, and our agricultural strength in terms of being able to grow a substantial crop. Of course, this year we have been hit by the drought, which is a bit taken us back a little. But I think the main thing here is harnessing our resources, one. Two, our ability to be land linked to 8 neighbors, plus one through the lakes, Lake Tanganyika, which makes it 9. And that allows us to have a very advantageous position in terms of trade with our neighbors. So that is a key strength in the manufacturing sector. The fact that we have a very youthful population in this country also, that if we concentrate on providing the right skills for them, can create a workforce that drives the manufacturing sector forward. So resources for us is first. We have abundant resources that we should add value to. And the markets that we have access to, like COMESA, SADC, and AFTA. So these are things that we need to be concentrating on in terms of building the manufacturing sector going forward, using those resources and creating value chains so that we get people involved in manufacturing from the small scale to the big companies.
In what industries do you see the greatest potential for growth in the Zambian manufacturing sector, and then why?
So one of the greatest strengths I've said is the fact that we're land linked and we have access to markets. And if we look at sectors that drive growth around those access to markets, it's very, very important. There's no point producing when you can't sell, right? So when we look at the industries that are revolving around agro-processing, one, that is very, very key in terms of export-driven initiatives from the manufacturing sector. Two, value addition to our copper resources in terms of driving industry around building copper wire, copper tubing, the EV plants that we're talking about. These are great, potentials for vast growth, right? The pharmaceutical industry, in terms of Zambia becoming self-reliant on the pharmaceutical products within country. When we look at issues of metal fabrication for the mines, machine shops, If we're going to go and we're going to reach a 3 million ton target of copper, the mines need a support industry. So these are the growth opportunities, I would say, for the manufacturing sector, some of them that I've laid out, and where we need to really be concentrating on making sure that we also develop the skills base for those industries and subsectors. The opportunities are vast. You know, I can give you just a few, but you know, value addition in the manufacturing sector, these are the things that we really need to concentrate on: agro-processing, value addition to minerals, and support industry for the mines. This is where we need to concentrate.
In terms of local manufacturing, I would like you to elaborate further on how local manufacturing can help to create jobs and other economic opportunities for the Zambians, especially people who are in rural areas.
When we look at concentrating on things like agri-processing, right, and you look at jobs that you can potentially create in rural areas, because rural areas, there's two types of jobs you'll create. One is the base industry, which maybe can grow produce for you to add value to. Could be soya, maize, wheat, anything as that example. There's also the issue of artisanal miners in the rural areas, right, who have the potential to contribute to the manufacturing industry in terms of supply of raw materials. When you are able to position industry now in rural areas, and there's the new act which I think the government has rolled out, which is the Investment, Trade and Business Development Act, which now allows for rural areas also to be classified for incentives. That is now allowing for positioning of industrial centers away from the city, right? Now, if we do it correctly, you will find that you can drive rural development in a very different way. But irrespective of that, local manufacturing creates not only a supply for import substitution, right, for when we've been importing so many products, but it also creates in that job opportunities, not only in the urban areas, but also for the rural areas in terms of, as I said, supply chain. On top of that, now you can move industry into the rural areas. So local manufacturing as the driver of job creation and wealth, because it is the value adder in the economy, is very, very important. But it is now up to us to really understand how we can harness that strength. I've talked about access to markets, right? I've talked about we have our resources. I've talked about now, I think it's about a little bit about creating policy that enhances manufacturing for export and for local consumption.
As the manufacturing sector, what are some of the raw materials or resources or skills that Zambia can leverage to build a stronger domestic manufacturing base?
Look, the key resources, there's three aspects I'll look at from here. One, the resource itself, and then when you say, I've given you examples of copper and agricultural products. Two is skills. Three is access to finance, right? So these are the things that we need to be really developing in tandem to make sure, with the help of policy, that these progress in terms of what are you harnessing and what are you going to put together to get a manufacturing products out. So I would say to you that what are if you say the key resources are that your people, what you can mine and what you can grow, right? The financial muscle to get it right, the policy to get it right. So when we put all these together, and if we get it, working as a finely, I would say, oiled engine, you can actually get the manufacturing sector in the right direction.
Okay, great. So in terms of policies or initiatives that have been implemented by government, are you able to share with us?
Look, government, I think one of the most important things they did was SI 110, right, which was for the manufacturers, is a waiver of duty and taxes on raw materials. I think that can go a little step further. We do feel that it can go a little step further in certain industries to allow for of waivers irrespective of SI 110, things that are known that we cannot make in Zambia. But SI 110, which the government signed in, was actually very, very important and has worked well in terms of driving the sector. That was one of the most important things they'd done.
Wonderful. So for now, we are going on a short break. Stay tuned.
Zambia Today is a program that keeps you informed on various government policies and programs. Join us every Tuesday at 18 hours on Zanis TV, Topstar Platform, Channel 6 DTT and 458 DTH. Don't miss.
Welcome back. In case you have just joined us, this is Zambia Today. We are discussing the benefits of local manufacturing in Zambia. And to explain to us in the studio, I have Mr. Ashu Saga, Zambia Association of Manufacturers President. Before we went on a break, sir, we were talking about some of the initiatives that have been implemented by government. Could you please continue from that?
One of the other major initiatives is the Proudly Zambian campaign, which we run in conjunction with the Ministry of Commerce. And this is an initiative to basically promote Zambian products around, buying a locally manufactured product. And I think we've done quite well on that. If you start going into the supermarkets, you start seeing a lot more Zambian products that have got the Proudly Zambian logo on it. We are hoping that also as a policy, we start seeing government's procurement starting to move in that direction. That there is a directive that was given that we will buy only Zambian products. I think this was in December from Cabinet. But I think we should start using the Proudly Zambian campaign as a verification tool for government's access to products in the market.
Awesome. How has the development of local manufacturing impacted Zambia's trade balance and ability to reduce reliance on imported products?
So progressively, Zambia has been moving away from importing on a lot of finished products, right? And I think you've seen that on the shelves when you go, and that gives an indication that you are actually reducing your dependence on imports. And that is affecting the trade balance in terms of what you're using to buy a similar product from South Africa or overseas. Yes, there is still the element of choice on the shelves, which some supermarkets will still import a certain amount, but what you're seeing now is a quality product from the Zambian manufacturers alongside the imported products. So definitely it has affected the trade balance in a positive way. But remember, the Zambian market also, consumer base is growing. So you have to keep up with that in terms of the quality and quantity of products that we're making and that we're able to take over, I would say, from imported products. We should be, hopefully, in the next few years, if we can get, I think, the energy supply side right, a big growth in the manufacturing sector in terms of substituting imported products. And that will help the trade balance going forward.
Wonderful. So in what ways can the manufacturing industry help contribute to food security and also reducing poverty levels in our country?
Look, I think food security is twofold here, right? There's the base. When you create employment, right? You have a certain. I want to move it away from the word of food security, but when you create employment, you get people who now have disposable income, and disposable income is used on what? Manufactured products. So it becomes a little ecosystem, and you create an economy around people buying products, growing for the manufacturing industry. So as your manufacturing sector grows, the spin-off of money to people who are in the rural areas, because imagine if you're buying soya for your manufacturing sector, that develops a certain income that the person can spend and be food secure, if you want to use it in that mentality. But if you don't grow your manufacturing sector, where does the disposable income come from? It can't just come from the mining sector on its own in isolation. It can't come from the agricultural sector on its own in isolation. Everything must feed into the value chain that creates employment and disposable income for the people. So food security comes as a result of wealth creation, if you get what I'm saying. If you are able to put people to work and that they have a salary, they're able to spend it and be secure in terms of growing. And then the people who are growing product, the farmers, also know they have somewhere to sell their produce. So food security in that way is very, very interlinked in that it creates income, allows someone to grow, not only for sale to the manufacturing sector, but for themselves. So it's a very interlinked, I think, concept that we need to drive.
Awesome. So then, I understand you have some challenges. Are you able to share with us some of the challenges that you are facing in the manufacturing sector, and how do you manage to address some of these challenges?
Look, I mean, some of the biggest problems, I think, in the manufacturing sector right now is security of energy. Yes, that is something that has been caused by the drought this year. You know that Zambia's energy is very green. I mean, we're over 90% reliant on hydro. It is affecting the manufacturing sector in a very big way as one of the challenges. So I think we need to be very, very fast on finding alternative sources of energy. and then the issue of the exchange rate is very, very, I would say, the volatility of the exchange rate is very impactful on how manufacturing is able to be competitive. Interest rates, right? Tax policy or policy around taxation for the manufacturing sector has to be very, very, I think, deliberate in terms of now growing the manufacturing sector. So when we talk about challenges, there are some that you can control and there are some that you can't control. Energy right now is a little bit out of our control in terms of the sudden impact. But the planning for future energy projects needs to be accelerated. Because if you want to grow the mining sector to 3 million tons, the energy has to come from somewhere for them, but it shouldn't take away from the manufacturing sector. So we have to grow enough for the economy and on the projects for energy. The issues of the exchange rate. If we do not diversify our income base from foreign exchange rate is going to be a continuous problem in terms of the stability. We need a stable exchange rate to plan, to cost our products, and to be competitive in the markets. Access to finance is also very important because you cannot grow a manufacturing sector without a investment arm maybe or banking institution that deals with investing in long-term projects. So there's these things that we need to have as challenge. These challenges need to be worked on, especially the ones we can control. Tax policy we can control, right? This is something that's very, very important, I think, and even the general business environment is something, the multiple licensing, right? We keep talking about it. You've heard the Minister of Commerce bring it up, I think, recently. Governments recognize the problem, that it needs to be fixed. But I think it's the how that is taking too long. And we need to get past that and move on from this cloud of that constrains us at times. To start a business, you need so many licenses. That's a big challenge.
Okay, so in terms of supporting the development of SMEs, how can increased local manufacturing support the growth of SMEs in Zambia?
Look, when you create a ecosystem or a value chain around a resource, SMEs have to form part of the plan, right? So one of the biggest things that here is when you say how do SMEs, when you're a big manufacturing concern, for example, you cannot just do everything on your own. Small SMEs will fit into that value chain at some part or other to grow it. So when you look at adding value to a base resource, now I'll give you a resource that sits maybe in the farming industries, right? Agro-processing. The SME can play a vital role in terms of a small-scale farmer, a input provider, it could be, an aggregator, a small aggregator. It can be somewhere in the manufacturing industry that supplies a support service in terms of technical support, machining. You know, some SMEs can be one consultant or one engineer that sits with his little consulting company and goes into a big manufacturing concern and is in charge of making sure that certain maintenance is done properly. So as a manufacturing sector grows, is my point, and as a company at the top end grows, you have smaller SMEs in the support services, one, on the supply chain side, two, on the value addition of part processing before it gets to a big manufacturer, three, right? So these are all spaces that the SME can fit into. The key thing here is creating policy, again, around an SME to get them off the ground. Do we have the right policies, for example, in terms of the employment code, which is also a very big challenge for us right now? We're having this issue where the employment code that existed from 2019 discourages employment, right? It's not an employment enabler, is what it's supposed to be, really. We're over-regulating that part of the industry. Now, an SME will have the same things in terms of the employment code that they have to adhere to in terms of employing people and growing, and they may not be able to do it. So an SME can fit in when we create also policy, I think, specifically for them as well. It's not good enough just to have the value chain and have the opportunities, but how does an SME now, oh, there's an opportunity, how do I become part of it? A lot of it is around policy. So that's also something we need to be very, very mindful of. Deliberate in terms, and I know I'm happy there's the ministry, the SME ministry, but I think a lot needs to be done very quickly to make sure that there's an enabling stepladder for them to get to the right point. You look at BMW, I give this example many times. BMW in Germany supports 10,000 SMEs. 10,000, one big company. That's what you need to achieve.
Great. So looking to the future, what is your vision for the Zambia manufacturing sector, especially it becoming a regional manufacturing hub for Southern Africa?
Look, the first point I made was the issue of Zambia being land-linked, right? It is the greatest strength we have in terms of trade. Our 8, 9 countries that we are connected to is an immediate market. Not many countries in Africa have that. When you look around, let me ask you, how many countries have 9 neighbors? 8 plus the one Burundi, 9 neighbors sitting as an opportunity. Congo is one of our biggest, DRC is one of our biggest trading partners. So now, you know, in business you have what we call the SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities and threats. You start looking at your strengths. Out of your strengths, the land link is the key strength we have to grow. The opportunities now lie with trade. How do you create a avenue for that trade to grow? So there's AFTA, there's SADC, there's COMESA. But sometimes these are all, I would say, bigger ideas that move us away from the immediate trade partners that we have. You know, when we've been talking about COMESA and SADC, yes, we think about the bigger picture. We think about AFTA, which we should be. But our first stepping stone, right, is our neighbors. It's how easy it is for you to trade with someone right next to you than someone a kilometer or 2 kilometers away. It's a no-brainer at times. So when I say that for the future of manufacturing, first we harness our land-linked strength, 1. 2, we are abundantly blessed with resources that we own. That must create value for Zambia. We need to stop being an extractive industry-based country. The policy around EVs needs to be accelerated if we're going to do it, the EV batteries. Policy around assembly plants in Zambia needs to be accelerated. Policy around creating a hub that manufactures for our 9 neighbors. I know I always say 9, and our further neighbors in the SADC region needs to be harnessed. So you do that again with deliberate interventions. We're going to have to be very deliberate on skills, for example, very deliberate on investment platforms for the manufacturing sector, very deliberate on how we structure MFESs going forward, how we look after the SMEs, how the farming blocks come online to supply our neighbors, deliberate in what we grow in a farm block. What's the point of growing when you have a farm block sitting next to Congo? And what's the point of growing something that the Congolese don't even eat? But you can grow it right next door, agri-process it and send it across. Those are the deliberate interventions. I think if we get them right, the manufacturing sector in Zambia becomes strategically positioned because of that landing strength. There's nothing I think we can't do even with our mineral resources. Copper. You look, we have 4 cable plants in Zambia now, Zamefa, Nilkant, there's 2 others in Lusaka. We have issues of copper supply right now, where our copper suppliers, cable manufacturers, are having a problem accessing refined copper from the mines. We need a deliberate policy to have accessibility of quality copper at the right price for consumption, one within Zambia, to our neighbors, and in the SADC and COMESA region. So if we get the policies right and the right interventions, we become a strategic hub on agro-processing, mineral processing, I would say mineral processing to final product, value addition into transformers, for example. There is so much, I don't know if you know where I'm going, there is so much we can do because of the maybe initially the one strength we have is land linked. The first strength, access to market. There's no point having the resources, adding value to them if you can't sell them, as I said. We can. We can do so much with what we have.
Great. Mr. Saga, thank you for coming to the studio for this program. We really appreciate.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having Zam on your show.
Viewers, as we have heard, manufacturing offers Zambia a pathway to greater prosperity and economic stability. And by investing in the manufacturing capabilities, Zambia can boost or create more jobs, boost exports, and strengthen its position in the global market. Thank you for joining us on Zambia Today. On behalf of the entire Zanis production team, my name is Faith Katai. Have a pleasant viewing.